He crouched by the curb, voice low and urgent, but all anyone saw was a shivering girl in ragged clothes. Her hands trembled around a cracked paper cup, its faded print promising nothing but hope. She peered into it, finding only yesterday's rainwater and the faint scent of stale fries. Darkness lurked behind her eyes, but she forced herself to ask the only question she knew: spare any leftovers. She did not expect an answer beyond hurried footsteps or averted glances, but tonight the universe had other plans. He stepped off the polished steps of his town car as she crouched, head bowed. His suit was charcoal gray, cut to perfection, accented by a silk tie the color of midnight. He paused, noting the way her ribs pressed against thin fabric, the way her fingers hovered over the rim of that empty cup. Something inside him shifted. "Miss," he said, voice measured. She looked up, startled by the gentleness of his tone. The streetlight cast a glow that lined his profile in silver. She blinked, as if unable to reconcile the stranger's tailored elegance with his expression of simple concern. "No leftovers," he added, holding out a hand. "It was not meant to take, but to give." She stared, disbelief mixing with suspicion, doubt wrinkling her forehead. Her voice cracked as she whispered, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you." "You're not bothering anyone," he replied. His words carried warmth like sunlight cutting through winter's chill. "Come with me." Fear fluttered in her chest. She hesitated, then closed the small distance between them, letting his steady hand guide her. He led her to the car, opening the back door. She sank onto the plush seat, the leather cool beneath her thighs. He buckled her seatbelt with a delicacy that seemed almost reverent inside. The world felt different. The soft hum of the engine, the faint scent of fresh air and mahogany, the distant wail of sirens, it was as though she'd stepped through a portal into another life. He slid into the driver's seat, his gaze flicking to her through the rearview mirror. "Where are we going?" she asked, voice small. "You'll see," he said before pulling away from the curb. They wove through the city's veins, passing neon signs and battered storefronts. She traced the skyline with her eyes, handheld map of dreams she scarcely dared to voice. After several minutes, the car slowed in front of a brick building crowned by gold letters spelling Grace Hospital. She stared, heart pounding. "Hospital," she echoed. He nodded. "You need care." She swallowed hard. "I'm fine." He reached back, placing the folder in her lap. Inside were papers, her name typed on an appointment form, columns for personal history, blank spaces awaiting her story. She examined them, confusion giving way to dawning realization. He cut the engine. "Follow me." They crossed the threshold. The antiseptic scent pressed at her nostrils, cold and clinical. A nurse behind the desk glanced at their folder and offered a nod. She led them down a corridor to a sunlit room. The doctor waited, smiling kindly, hands folded on the desk. "Miss Marisol Washington?" he asked. Her breath caught. Marisol, the name she'd clung to, whispered in the dark. "This man knew it." She nodded, voice barely a whisper. He gestured to a chair. "Please sit." Her fingers trembled as she unbuttoned her shirt. The doctor placed a hand on her bare skin, his touch professional yet gentle. After a moment, he stepped back, folding his arms. "You're 5 months pregnant," he stated plainly. She froze, eyes wide. Silence stretched between them, taut as a drawn bow. He watched her, patient and unhurried. "That can't be," she said, voice cracking. I've been careful." He offered a soft smile. "It doesn't matter how. What matters now is you and the baby. You deserve support." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She sank into the chair, shoulders convulsing with sobs. He slid in beside her, offering a tissue, his presence a steady anchor. "Do you have anywhere safe to go?" he asked. She shook her head. "No family, no one." He nodded. "Then let me help. You're not alone." Hours blurred with questions and explanations, nutritional plans, scheduling weekly checkups, financial assistance programs. She gave snippets of her life, how she'd fled an abusive home at 14, how she'd drifted from one shelter to another, how the ache of hunger had become her constant companion. He listened, absorbing every word. At sunset, he escorted her back to the car. She closed her eyes against the fading light, exhaustion and relief mingling in her chest. He opened The passenger door, guiding her to the driver's side. "Where to now?" she whispered. "Home," he replied. She glanced at him, puzzled. He drove across town to a high-rise building. The lobby gleamed with marble, chandeliers dripping crystal light. He led her to an elevator and pressed the button for the penthouse. Level dot, the suite door swung open to reveal polished floors, modern furnishings, and floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city like a jewel box. He walked ahead, motioning her inside. "This will be your home for now," he said. He pointed to a guest room furnished with a soft bed, plush pillows, and fresh linens. "Rest here. I'll arrange everything else." She sank onto the bed, fatigue washing over her. He lingered at the door. "Thank you," she managed. He closed the door quietly and retreated. In the silence, she pressed her hand to her belly, closing her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. Days turned into weeks. He hired a midwife to visit the suite, a nutritionist who prepared balanced meals, a social worker who helped her navigate housing options. He arranged for her to attend prenatal yoga classes and connected her with a support group of expectant mothers. He visited often, sometimes bringing bouquets of lilies, other times pastries from the bakery around the corner. They would sit together. In the living room, her mosaic of canvases lining the walls, each stroke of pastel blue or blush pink reflecting her newfound hope. "How are you feeling today?" he'd ask. She'd smile, hand drifting to her rounded belly. "Better than ever." He'd glance at the monitor, ticking toward the next appointment. "Your checkup is tomorrow." She sighed, a contented exhale. "I know. I'm ready." The weeks flowed, measured in kicks and appointments. He celebrated each milestone, the first kick that startled her in the night, the heartbeat echoing through the ultrasound gel, the baby's outline on the screen like a message written just for her. One evening, he found her at the window, staring out at the city's lights. He stood behind her, draping an arm around her shoulders. "She's going to have a beautiful view," he murmured. She leaned into him. "She already does." The day came when her waters broke. He helped her into the car as she gripped his arm, pain sharpening her features. He drove with calm urgency, weaving through traffic until they reached the hospital. In the delivery room, she labored against waves of pain. He knelt by her side, hand tight in hers, whispering encouragement. Breath. "You're doing great. Almost there." Time warped. The world narrowed to her breath and his voice, and then first a cry, sharp and pure. He wiped tears as the nurse placed a pink, wrinkled bundle on her chest. She pressed down tears of awe and love streaming. "It's a girl," the nurse announced. Marisol's voice trembled. "Angelica." He leaned forward, kissing Angelica's tiny forehead. "Welcome, little one." The days that followed were a whirl of visitors and paperwork. He arranged for Marisol to move into an apartment near the Hospitala Brightspace, with windows that caught the sunrise. He secured childcare for her future and set up a trust fund for Angelica's education. But he did more. He formed a foundation aimed at helping homeless expectant mothers. He invited Marisol to join the board, giving her a platform to share her story and advocate for others like her. Months later, a community hall buzzed with hopeful chatter. Donors and volunteers gathered. Eyes bright, Marisol stepped to the podium. Angelica cradled in her arms. Her voice, once hesitant, rang clear as she recounted her journey from dumpsters to deliverance. "And none of this would have been possible without someone believing in me when I had nothing left to give," she said, looking out at the audience. Applause swept through the room. He stood in the back, pride softening his gaze. After the presentation, he made his way through the crowd until he stood before her. He reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. "For you and Angelica," he said, opening it to reveal a locket etched with tiny footprints. "So you'll never forget where you started and how far you've come," she gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Angelica cooed in her arms. He lifted her hand, pressing the locket against her heart. "Thank you," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, thank you for showing me what true wealth is." They stepped outside into the summer night. Angelica slept in her carrier, the city's lights winking around them. He offered his arm, and she linked hers through his. "Ready for the next chapter?" he asked. She smiled, eyes shining. "Let's write it together."